My name is Nathan Blake. There's not much to say about my personality. I'm punctual at school. I do my homework, and I don't like mingling with unnecessary people. You asked why I transferred schools. Simple. I like peace and quiet. But unfortunately, I ended up in class 11 sevenths at Central High. On the very first day, I knew something was off. All eyes were on me, not because I was new, but because of the guy sitting in the last row. The seat the teacher had just pointed me to. His name was Damian Hart. Word had it he was the school's big boss, a notorious troublemaker who once kicked his deskmate so hard, the poor guy had to stay home for a week. He was slouched in the back with his headphones on, chin resting in his palm, looking every bit the type that screamed, "Mess with me and your life's over." And me? I'd just been assigned as his new deskmate. The entire class held its breath as I walked over. The sound of chairs scraping was unusually loud. I sat down without so much as glancing at the person next to me. No matter how scary this guy was, it had nothing to do with me. What I hated most was people staring. Just then, he opened his mouth. "Not afraid of me, huh?" I flipped open my book, my tone flat as water, uninterested. Just one reply, and he went silent. I even heard someone in the front row nearly choke on their drink. The classroom air turned strangely still. Damian didn't say another word, but from that moment on, I knew I had caught his attention. The first period passed in silence. I focused on the lecture, hand moving across the page, taking notes non-stop. Still, I couldn't ignore the occasional sideways glances from the person beside me. When the bell rang for recess, I stood up, only to see him still leaning on his desk, eyes fixed on me. "You're really serious about studying, huh?" he said, voice tinged with mockery. I didn't bother responding, just turned my head away. "Not a talker?" His smirk widened, like he just discovered a new toy. "I don't like noisy people," I replied curtly. Instead of getting mad, he laughed. That was the first time I looked straight at Damian Hart. He had the kind of troublesome good looks that spelled danger. Sharp features, thin lips curled up at one corner, eyes both lazy and cunning. The kind of person you knew would drag you into trouble. "So, what should I do to be less noisy then?" He tilted his head, asking. I didn't answer, only bent down to pack my books. But inside, I wavered a little. For some reason, the way he looked at me, the way he talked, it wasn't like he was teasing me. It felt more like he was trying to get my attention. It was unsettling. After school, I was the last to leave the classroom. As I opened my desk to put my books away, I froze. Inside was a carton of milk and a peppermint candy bar, with a sticky note attached. "Drink milk to get smarter. Eat candy so you won't be so cold." Deskmates weren't strangers anymore. I glanced around. The classroom was empty. Then my eyes landed on the desk next to mine. A grey jacket was left behind, embroidered with 2 small letters. DH. No need to guess. I picked up the milk, not intending to drink it, yet my fingers tightened around it unconsciously. In the end, I sipped slowly, as if testing for something special. It really was warm. The next morning, I arrived early. To my surprise, Damian Hart was already there, asleep at his desk, hair falling over half his face. I slipped quietly into my seat, but within seconds, he stirred and cracked one eye open at me. "You're here already." His voice was husky with sleep, yet still carried weight. I said nothing. "Check your desk," he murmured, pointing with his chin. I opened it. Inside was a box of rice balls, a pack of seaweed, even wet wipes, along with another sticky note. "Yesterday, I saw you eating nothing but a dry piece of bread. Don't abuse your stomach like that. It hurts me to see it." I looked up. Damian Hart was still lying on his desk, lips curved faintly. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Taking care of my deskmate. What else?" He answered as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "No need, I'm cold enough, but I want you to look at me with open eyes. This time, you didn't avoid me. I think you're interesting." His gaze deepened. "Very interesting." I froze. For the first time in 17 years, someone had told me I was interesting with eyes like that. It wasn't like praising an achievement or a well-written essay. It was the way you look at someone you want to get closer to. I turned away to dodge his eyes, but my heart skipped a beat. I'd always thought of myself as unapproachable. Not because I deliberately kept my distance, but because I wasn't used to attention. Yet Damian Hart was the greatest exception I had ever met. From the very first day we sat together, my desk had almost turned into a mini convenience store. Milk cartons, cookies, peppermint candies, sticky notes, even a hand warmer once. None of it was expensive, none of it flashy, and yet nothing ever repeated. It was as if you were quietly studying my tastes. This morning when I set down my bag, there was something new again. A silver thermos cup, still warm, with tiny words printed on the side. "Autumn can be chilly. Don't catch a cold, top student. Your deskmate." I opened it. The scent of ginger tea drifted out, soothing and gentle. I had never told anyone what I liked to drink, yet somehow he'd gotten it exactly right. I turned to look at Damian Hart. He was propping his chin, pretending to flip through his textbook, but those sideways glances clearly weren't about the lesson. "Thanks," I murmured. He stiffened, eyes lifting in visible surprise. "You just thanked me." I didn't reply, simply kept flipping pages without meeting his gaze. But I heard a quiet laugh from beside me, so soft, like wind brushing over a lake. Damn it, my heart was beating way too fast. At noon, there was a surprise essay test. The whole class buzzed like a beehive. I wasn't worried, I studied every subject evenly, nothing could shake me. What did surprise me was Damian Hart. He wasn't just doing the test. He was deadly serious about it. Bent over, frowning, writing non-stop. I glanced at him. Was this the same guy who once tossed a blank paper at the teacher's face? I couldn't resist. When class ended, I leaned over and whispered, "Why so serious?" During PE, the sun was blazing. After running laps, I felt lightheaded and sat down on a bench to wipe my face. Something suddenly flew toward me, a bottle of water. Drink. Damian Hart walked over. His uniform jacket was tied around his waist. The white t-shirt underneath soaked in sweat, bangs damp and clinging to his forehead. I accepted the bottle without ceremony. Only after drinking did I realize it wasn't plain water, but chilled plum drink. "Next time, don't drink soda. It's bad for your health. Then consider this me balancing it out." He grinned. I didn't reply, just turned my head, though warmth seeped quietly into my chest, like the first sunlight of early winter. After school, it was pouring rain. I hadn't brought an umbrella. I wasn't planning to wait for it to stop. Just braced myself to dash through when suddenly an umbrella opened above my head. Damian Hart stood beside me, holding it in one hand, draping his jacket over my shoulders with the other. "Idiot, your notebooks are getting soaked," he chided softly. "I don't need you." "I'm not asking," he cut in, pulling me along like he'd been doing it forever. So we walked together under the rain. I was slightly shorter than him. The umbrella tilted more toward me, leaving his shoulder almost drenched. "You're getting wet," I said quietly. "It's fine, as long as you don't get wet," Damian replied, voice steady. I faltered for a second. What kind of person was this? By title, he was the school tyrant. In reality, he was softer than anyone. The more I was around him, the clearer it became his treatment of me wasn't like with anyone else. By the time I reached my apartment complex, it was nearly dark. I hadn't even changed out of my uniform when I got the first text from an unknown number. I guess he wouldn't save my number. But I saved yours yesterday. "Don't come to school too early tomorrow. I'll bring breakfast." I stared at the message for a long time without replying. But the next morning, I deliberately slowed my pace by 10 minutes. At the school gate, he was there, holding 2 bags of hot buns. I tried to walk straight past him, but Damian Hart quickly shoved one of the bags into my hand. "If you don't eat, I'll be mad." I took it, voice flat. "I'm not afraid of you." His lips curled. "I don't need you to be afraid. I just need you to get used to me showing up every day." I didn't argue. Maybe. I really was starting to get used to it. I'd always thought someone like Damian, the school tyrant, lazy student, always napping, probably didn't have good relationships with others. But I had underestimated him. Or rather, I had misjudged the way he treated outsiders versus the way he treated me. That Tuesday afternoon, I stayed behind after class to solve a tough math problem. He sat next to me, bored, resting his chin in his hand, watching me like it was some kind of romance drama with no climax. "Hey, does doing stuff like this even count as fun?" His voice was lazy. Without looking up, I answered, "It's fun." "Then give me a hard one like that." I was surprised. He grinned, but his eyes were strangely serious. After a pause, I wrote a new problem and slid it over. He took it and actually worked on it. For the first time, I saw the school's tyrant so serious. Not just serious, but patient. His brow furrowed slightly in concentration, and I found myself watching. Then the classroom door opened. A group of students from another class walked in. One of them, with dyed green hair, headed straight toward us. Well, if it isn't our top student back at it again, huh?" His tone was dripping with mockery. Damian kept writing, not looking up. The guy turned to me. "And this must be the new deskmate. Damn, you're good looking." The way his eyes lingered on me made my skin crawl. He stepped closer, accidentally knocking my notebook to the floor. As he bent to pick it up, his hand brushed deliberately against mine. Before I could pull away, Damian Hart was already on his feet. Tall, lean, but radiating presence. "Touch him again. Try it." His voice was low, not loud, but enough to drop the temperature in the room. I saw the whole group freeze. One of them forced a laugh. "Relax, just kidding. Get out." Just one word, not shouted, but more powerful than any scream. The group turned and left immediately. Before the green-haired one stepped out, I caught him muttering, "He's already stuck to him. No saving that." When the room was quiet again, Damian sat back down. He didn't look at me, just flipped the math sheet back. I spoke first. "You didn't need to do that." "Do what?" "Shield me from them." "Not for you," he said calmly. "I just didn't like the way they looked at me." I stayed silent. Deep down, I knew he was lying. The way his eyes burned when he stood up, it was clearly to protect me. That night, lying on my bed staring at the white ceiling, the image kept replaying in my head. I had never had anyone stand up for me like that. Most people only saw me as the untouchable top student, a model to follow. No one had ever seen me as someone worth protecting. No one but Damian Hart. He did it quietly, without bragging, yet it was impossible to look away. I opened my phone, stared at the saved name. "Damian, you troublesome idiot." I tapped the chat window, hesitated for a few seconds, then typed, "Thanks for today." Not even 10 seconds later, he replied, "Oh, so our Nathan Blake actually knows how to say thanks." I frowned. Another message popped up. "I know already. No need to thank me. If anyone ever dares touch you again, I'll block them every time." I stared at those words for a long time without answering. But warmth spread quietly inside me, like a thin spring breeze, making me want to lean into it. The next day, a small gift bag appeared in my desk. I sighed. This time it was neatly wrapped, tied with a red ribbon. Inside was a book, or rather, disguised as one. A comic book dressed up like a skill guide. And tucked within, a note. For you, the one who defeats me every day with eyes colder than ice. Your deskmate, defeated daily. I couldn't help it, I laughed out loud. He really was troublesome, but in a strangely endearing way. When I looked up, Damian Hart was pretending to turn his face away. I asked on purpose. Any idea who put this here? Nope, he said nonchalantly. Probably someone who's got a crush on you but doesn't dare give it directly. I looked straight into his eyes. Then why use the same red ribbon you always tie around your notebooks? He froze. I tilted my head. You should learn to lie better. Damian Hart, caught red-handed, scratched his head and gave an embarrassed laugh. But he didn't deny it anymore, just muttered softly. I only wanted you to open your desk every day and see that someone is paying attention to you. My heart tightened, not out of shyness, but because I realized I didn't want to reject that anymore. I once heard a famous saying, a truly strong person doesn't need to prove their strength. It suited Damian perfectly. But only when I saw him solve an extremely difficult math problem in 5 minutes, did I finally understand. He wasn't just strong. He was so good at hiding it that he had fooled me for an entire month. That afternoon, our class was split into study groups. Miss Song, our homeroom teacher, cheerfully announced, since your midterm exams are coming up, today's groups will be top students paired with slackers, so you can help each other. The whole class groaned in unison. Unsurprisingly, I was paired with Damian Hart. Even less surprising, he clapped his hands right away. I'm ready to be enlightened by the top student. I showed no reaction except boredom. What had to come came. That afternoon, after school, I was dragged into an empty classroom on the 3rd floor, rarely visited, just me and Damian, for group study. He rested his chin in his hand lazily, voice drawling. Teach me to love math the way I love you. I shot him a glare. Do you want to study or get kicked out of the group? He chuckled softly, then pulled out his pen with surprising seriousness. You're really going to study? I asked. Really, he said, tone free of mockery. Teach me. I handed him an advanced problem one that had taken me nearly 10 minutes to solve myself. Damian skimmed it, then began writing quickly. 5 minutes later, he slid the paper back. I picked it up and froze. The answer was correct, the method flawless, even the presentation neater than mine. I was silent for a long time. He raised an eyebrow. What? Impressed? Damian Hart, I said. You're no slacker. Yeah, he shrugged. I'm not stupid. I'm just lazy. Then why hide how good you are? He looked at me for a moment, then propped his chin on his hand. His voice slowed. You know why? If I let people see I'm smart, they'll expect things from me. And I don't want to live under other people's expectations. I didn't reply. I understood that feeling too well. I had lived under expectations my whole life, family, teachers, classmates. The only difference was, I didn't have the choice to refuse. Damian, at least, kept part of his freedom. You know why I kept this secret so long? He suddenly asked. I turned. His eyes were deep like the dark sea. So that one day I can tell you myself. My heart stuttered. The group study ended with me being dragged off for fried chicken. Reason. I did well. You have to reward me. I taught you. I protested. He grinned shamelessly. But my talent for learning fast is a gift. You should feel honored to be my teacher. And so I sat in the chicken shop, watching him eat, licking spicy sauce off his fingers like a child. A giant child. Grinning so brightly, I forgot this was the boy whose name scared the entire school. Out of nowhere, he held a piece of chicken to my lips. Here, try this one. The skin's the crispiest. I stared but didn't take it. His eyes narrowed. If you don't eat, I'll feed you myself. So I bit into it. Crispy, yes. But what was louder than the crunch was the pounding of my own heartbeat at his smile. On the way home, I walked slower. Not sure why, I just wanted the night to last longer. He walked beside me, hands in his pockets, glancing at me now and then, eyes curving mischievously as if hiding a secret. Nathan Blake, he suddenly called. What? You know what? I really am good. But only because of you did I let anyone else see it. I wanted you to know. I turned, said nothing. He gave a faint smile, voice soft. Because I want you to be proud of having me as your deskmate. I looked away, pretending to watch the streetlights. But inside, my feelings surged like spring tides, uncontrollable. I always thought I was rational. I could calculate derivatives in my head. Solve complex physics problems in 10 minutes. Even write essays on emotions without feeling shaken. But I didn't know how to face the burning stare of someone who watched me through every lesson. Eyes unrelenting, hotter than the city's summer heat. That someone was, of course, Damian Hart. And today he was clearly upset. Monday morning, the moment I stepped into class, I saw him slouched, eyes narrowed like a stray cat that had lost its meal. No need to ask, his mood was bad. I set down my bag, ready to pull out my chair, when he asked bluntly, "What's your relationship with that guy from the next class?" I froze. What guy? The one with glasses, brown hair, wrinkled shirt. You even smiled at him. I paused for a few seconds, then answered flatly, "He just asked to borrow a book." Damian nodded like he understood. But 2 minutes later, I saw him flip open his notebook and scribble in bold letters. Do I need to write a self-criticism if someone else touches you? I glanced over, frowning. What's wrong with you? Nothing. I just lost my composure a little. He turned away, but his ears were bright red. I saw it all. During break, I went to the back courtyard for water. When I returned, Eric Brown, the boy with glasses, was near my desk, holding my solution booklet. I was just looking. Your handwriting's really neat, he said awkwardly, rushing to explain when he noticed me. Before I could respond, a tall figure loomed from behind. Damian Hart. His gaze was sharp as a blade. Whose book are you touching? I was just... That belongs to my deskmate. His tone hardened. No one touches it, except me. I opened my mouth to stop him, but before I could, Eric's face had gone pale. He shoved the book back and bolted. Damian sat back down, arms folded, face calm, as if nothing had happened. I looked at him. You overdid it. I was just protecting my territory, Damian Hart answered bluntly. Territory? What territory? His reply came so fast it caught in my throat. I meant to say something, but for some reason, the words wouldn't come out. Damian, however, calmly opened his book and casually shoved a candy bar into my hand. For the top students, so you won't stay mad. After class, I was kept back to answer extra questions and left later than usual. It was raining again. I stood at the school gate, ready to sling my bag over my head and dash home, when someone appeared, umbrella raised above me. You're late. It was Damian. I stared at him. Why didn't you go first? Without you, I'm not leaving, he said lightly, as if it meant nothing. But those words somehow made me stop in my tracks. Still holding the umbrella, he continued. Someone made you smile today. I didn't like it. You're not in charge of my emotions, I replied. I know, he said, turning to look at me. His eyes were deadly serious. I just want to be the only one who makes you smile. I stayed silent, heart skipping. Then he reached out, gently adjusting the collar of my shirt dampened by rain. Nathan Blake. His voice dropped lower. I'm not good with words, but I know one thing. What? That I'm serious about you. For the first time, I didn't know how to argue back. I just stood there under the umbrella tilted toward me, in the dim light of the school gate, feeling a sting at the bridge of my nose. When I got home, there was a text on my phone. When you smile at someone else, I just want to pull you back toward me. Not because I'm possessive, but because I like you. A lot. I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't reply. I simply set my phone down, leaning back into the chair, and the same words echoed again and again in my mind. I just want to be the only one who makes you smile. Damian Hart, just how far have you made it into my heart? I always thought I wasn't easily moved. I was used to living in silence, used to numbers and books, used to cold, polite interactions, never intimacy. Until one rainy day. And Damian, with his umbrella and gaze so gentle I couldn't look away, stepped into my barren world like a sudden summer downpour. That afternoon, there was a club meeting, so I stayed later than usual. By the time I left, rain was pouring down, not a drizzle, but sheets of water. I stood under the eaves on the second floor, watching puddles spread across the schoolyard, shimmering with the glow of the lights. I had no umbrella, no jacket, and my phone battery was nearly dead. It felt as if everything had conspired to keep me standing there, waiting for the storm to pass. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't upset. I thought I'd just wait a while. What I didn't expect was someone coming for me. A familiar figure dashed across the schoolyard through the rain, shirt soaked, hair messy from the wind. Damian Hart. I froze. He stopped under the eaves, breathless but smiling at me, rubbing the back of his head. I figured you couldn't have gone home yet. I frowned. How did you know I was here? He lifted the open umbrella in his hand, and the look in his eyes said it all. If I hadn't been here, he would have waited all night. I said nothing, only felt my chest tighten. Come on. He tilted the umbrella toward me. I hesitated for a beat. You're already soaked. It's fine, he smiled. As long as you're not. We walked in silence. The road to my home wasn't far, yet under the rain it felt much longer than usual. The umbrella was small, but somehow it was enough to cover the two of us, though most of it leaned toward me, leaving Damian's shoulder drenched. Quietly, I found myself leaning a little closer to his side. Cold? He asked. No. Good. He chuckled softly. As long as you're beside me, the rain can be as cold as it wants. I turned to him. Maybe it was the dim streetlight, maybe the rain, but his eyes looked glossy, as if veiled in a thin mist. My heart skipped again. When we reached the corner near my neighborhood, the rain suddenly grew heavier. The wind lashed so hard the umbrella nearly flipped. Damn it. He pulled me under a small awning by the roadside, back against the wall, still gripping the umbrella tightly. I stood so close that less than a hand's span separated us. The rain hammered against the tin roof. The wind howled past my ears. Yet all I could hear was the steady breath of the person in front of me. Damian Hart shook his wet hair. Strands clung to his forehead, his eyes shimmering in the streetlight. I swallowed, the silence growing too heavy. He looked at me, eyes deep as an old well. For some reason I didn't turn away. Nathan Blake. He whispered my name. Yeah? Can I kiss you? The words exploded in my head like a bomb. I hadn't expected it, not at all. I didn't answer, but I didn't avoid him either. My eyes lingered on his lips. If he leaned down just a little more, the distance would vanish. The wind picked up, forcing the umbrella to collapse. His hand shot up to catch it, brushing lightly against mine. The touch was cool yet burning. Not aloud. His voice was barely audible. I raised my head, meeting his eyes. There was waiting in them, a trace of fear, and a vulnerability so raw I almost wanted to wrap my arms around him. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. I only tilted my head, stepping half a pace back. Don't do weird things on the street. Damian was quiet for a few seconds, then he smiled. Then I'll kiss you at home. Still smiling, he pulled out a tissue and handed it to me. Wipe your face. You're soaked. I took it, and for some reason I smiled faintly. He didn't kiss me, but somehow, he knew exactly how to make my heart tremble bit by bit, day after day. By the time we reached my apartment, the rain hadn't stopped. Damian stood in front of the building, umbrella folded, hair dripping, shirt plastered to his skin. I stood before him, saying nothing, but my eyes didn't avoid his anymore. He lifted his hand, thumb brushing the droplets off my lashes. I held back, you know. What? The kiss. I lowered my face, heart thundering. He leaned in, stopping just at a safe distance, and smiled. But you didn't say no, so I'll wait. For the first time, I looked straight into his eyes without flinching. Yeah, just one word. But it was the first time I admitted I had softened. It wasn't just a fleeting crush, not just a passing spark. It was that whenever I thought of him by my side, my heart grew calm. That feeling serene like an autumn lake, gentle yet reaching depths unknown. The feeling I always had whenever I was with Damian Hart. Step by step, day by day, he moved closer. Every glance, every smile was like a pebble tossed into the cold lake that was me. And today, that lake had begun to ripple. Saturday the sun was bright. I had the day off and planned to spend it buried in problems. But at exactly 8 a.m., the doorbell rang. I opened it to see Damian, holding 2 cups of bubble tea, grinning like he'd won the lottery. You thought I'd let you off on weekends? Before I could respond, he stepped inside like he already owned the place. My room was neat, books stacked perfectly, bed made without a crease, everything labeled and sorted. Damian looked around, nodding as if he were touring a museum. Your place is so clean I'm afraid to breathe. I took the cup from him. What flavor this time? Roasted oolong with white pearls. Less sugar, no ice. I know you don't like it sweet. I paused, then took a sip. Perfect. I didn't say anything else, but my lips curved slightly. His grin grew even wider. He smiled. Too noisy. Just smile at me. I don't ask for more. At noon, we sat on the carpet playing tic-tac-toe with chalk and a small board. Damian lost every time, yet he kept playing. I think you're cheating. How do you even cheat at tic-tac-toe? He leaned closer with a mischievous glint. You're too handsome, it distracts me. My hand stilled. He burst out laughing, then fell quiet. A moment later, he leaned in, voice low. Do you know how beautiful your eyes look when you're focused on the board? I didn't look at him, but I could feel the closeness. Just one tilt of my head and our lips would meet. I stayed still, neither moving forward nor back. Damian's gaze locked on me, his breath brushing against my cheek. Nathan Blake. What? I want to kiss you. I turned away. Not yet. My voice dipped, sounding more strained than I intended. He wasn't angry. After a moment of silence, he simply nodded. All right. That afternoon, rain poured again, trapping us indoors. We each took a side of the bed, reading quietly, while the sound of rain filled the small room. Damian stretched out, lying across the mattress, hands behind his head as he turned to me. I've decided something. What? I won't kiss you anymore. I froze, turning toward him. He had his eyes closed, but his lips still curved. Because I want you to be the one to start it. I said nothing, but my heart skipped. Not out of embarrassment, but because I knew if he kept being this gentle, sooner or later, I wouldn't be able to hold back. That night, he left just as the rain stopped. I walked him to the door, silent. But as I turned to close it, his voice called me back. Nathan Blake. I stopped. He stood under the hallway light, head tilted, eyes soft yet unfathomably deep. If one day you want to kiss me, don't bother warning me first. I bit my lip. He stepped closer, hand brushing the back of my neck, pulling me toward him. The scent of rain still clung to his clothes. We stood so close I could hear his breathing. I didn't step back, but I didn't move forward either. He smiled. It's okay. I'll wait. That night, lying in bed, my mind replayed his face under the hallway light. That smile, those words. My whole body felt warm, though the night outside was cold. For the first time, I didn't open a book to study. I just lay there, thinking about one thing. What was I afraid of? Afraid of liking him, or afraid I already did? I always thought I understood my feelings. When I didn't like someone, I was cold. When I cared, I kept my distance. And when I was moved, I fell silent. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because I was afraid. Afraid that if I spoke, the vague would turn too real. So real I couldn't turn back. But after that evening, I realized I hadn't been able to turn back for a long time. Monday morning, class was noisy as usual with talk of the test. I came early, sat down, and opened my book to review. Only one thing was different: Damian Hart hadn't arrived. I glanced at the clock. Nearly class time. For the first time in a month, he was late. And for the first time, I kept looking toward the door. Whispers spread. Where's Damian? Did he get punished? Him? If he ever got punished, the whole school would stop breathing. I shut my book, pretending not to care. But my hand clenched the desk edge tight. Even when the teacher walked in, he still hadn't come. I couldn't focus. My head spun with reasons overslept, held back sick. Like my brain had crashed. Just as I was scribbling nonsense on my notebook, the door slammed open. Damian stumbled in, dripping wet, uniform soaked, hair plastered to his forehead, water dripping onto the floor. The class stared. Breathless, grinning, he said, "Sorry, teacher. I forgot my raincoat." The teacher looked ready to scold him, but seeing him drenched, only sighed and let it go. He dragged his steps toward me. I had never seen anyone walk so lazily and still make my chest burn. The moment he sat down, I muttered, "Are you an idiot?" He laughed, wiping his face with a tissue. Couldn't go home to change. The rain came too sudden. I was afraid of being late. Afraid of being late has nothing to do with being soaked. I frowned. I didn't want you sitting alone. That answer shut me up completely. I turned my head away, trying to hide the heat creeping up my face. I didn't know if he noticed. But one thing was clear. I couldn't keep my distance anymore. During break, I handed him my jacket. He chuckled. "I brought a towel. I don't care. I don't want you catching a cold." My voice was low, firm. "Wear it." He put it on, sneaking glances at me. "Your jacket smells like sunshine." "Shut up. I like it." I was about to snap, but his hoarse voice made me stop. I turned, asking softly, "Are you cold?" He looked at me for a long time, then nodded gently. "Yeah. But since you gave me your jacket, I feel warmer." I said nothing more, just quietly opened the carton of milk I'd packed, placing it on his desk. "Drink." "Nathan Blake," he said, voice dropping low. Without looking at him, I muttered, "Deskmates take care of each other. Don't overthink it." That afternoon, for the first time, I was the one who invited him to study together. Damian blinked in surprise, then burst out laughing. "Wow, I'm sick and I still get cared for by the top student. How touching." "Forget it if you don't want to." "I want. Really want." He scrambled to pack his things, afraid I'd changed my mind. We returned to the same empty classroom from our first group study. Same seats, same window, but the mood had changed. I no longer hid the emotions in my eyes, and he no longer looked at me just with teasing. "I think I love you already," Damian said. My pen stilled. My heart, strangely, was calm. I set it down, turned, and looked straight into his eyes. "Damian Hart." "Yeah? I'm not good at love. I know that. I'm not good with sweet words. I know that too. I've never liked anyone before." He froze. I took a deep breath. "But now I do." His eyes widened. I continued, every word clear. "It's you." In that moment I saw his eyes glisten. He smiled a lighter smile than usual, but gentler than any before. "Do you know how long I've been waiting to hear that?" "I don't know," I said softly. "But however long it was, I want to make it up to you." I leaned over, touching his hand lightly. For the first time, I didn't keep my distance. For the first time, I was the one to reach out first. Damian held my hand, squeezing gently. He said nothing, but that squeeze was his answer. He liked me too so much, so long, so real. When I held Damian Hart's hand, and he tightened his grip without hesitation, I knew right then, some feelings, once they arrive, can't be denied. After that day, things between us changed, but not by much. We were still deskmates, still silent during class, still the same carton of milk in my desk every morning with a scribbled note. "Drink this and think of me a little more." It was still Damian cold to the world, but gentle only with me. The only difference was that I had started to like that gentleness. That noon, under the blazing sun, I went to the office to get documents for our teacher. When I returned to class and stepped through the door, I saw a girl from another class standing at my desk, smiling brightly. In her hands was a gift box. I stopped, frowning slightly. She turned red the moment she saw me, thrust the box into my hands and stammered, "I like you. I've liked you for a long time." The classroom went utterly silent, all eyes on me. Before I could react, the sharp scrape of a chair cut through the air. Damian Hart stood, face blank but eyes dark. He walked slowly over, stopped in front of me, and without hesitation, took the box from my hands, placing it firmly back onto the girl's desk. "Thanks. But he won't accept it." The girl's face crumpled. "He already has a boyfriend," Damian said matter-of-factly. "Me." I had never seen anyone stake a claim so bluntly. Flustered, the girl bowed her head and ran out. The class erupted not because of her failed confession, but because of Damian's loud, unmistakable declaration. "He already has a boyfriend." "Me." Damian turned back to me, smiling like nothing had happened. Jealous. I looked at him, sat down slowly. "You didn't need to say it out loud. I don't like hiding." He shrugged. "I don't like attention." "Then let me get used to protecting you." He slipped a packet of pastries into my hand and muttered, "Eat this. It'll help with the shock." I looked at the snack and couldn't help laughing. Only Damian could make me feel lighter after something like that. That afternoon, after cleaning up my desk, I realized he was gone. No text, no word. I waited 10 minutes, 10 long minutes. Enough to realize I'd grown used to having him by my side. Finally, I grabbed my bag and headed downstairs. And there he was, by his bike, leaning on the handlebars. "What are you doing here?" I asked. He looked up, face calm, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of panic. "Nothing," he said, waving it off. but I noticed the scrape on his hand, a red mark across his knuckles. Your hand. I just fell. It's nothing. I didn't argue. I pulled him straight to the nurse's office. He didn't resist. When I dabbed antiseptic on the wound, he flinched slightly. Hurts. No, he whispered. I was just surprised. That you cared. I lowered my head, wrapping his hand carefully. You keep making people worry. Is it worth it? He was quiet for a long time. Then softly, as long as it's you worrying about me, it's worth it. On the way home, we walked in silence. But he stayed closer than usual, our shoulders almost touching. At the corner I stopped. He stopped too. I turned to him. Next time something happens, tell me. He nodded. I hesitated, then reached out first, taking his hand. His palm was cold, but his grip was firm. Without a word, he leaned down, pressing his forehead lightly to mine. You've held me now, he murmured. I won't let go. I didn't answer, because I didn't plan on letting go either. I'd never thought I'd have someone special. Not because I didn't believe in it, but because I'd never met anyone who made me want to open up. Until I sat in class 11/7 next to a boy named Damian Hart. Someone unlike anyone else. Someone who could turn a rigid top student into a person learning how to be gentle. Lately, the class had been acting strange. When I walked in, someone would whisper, "Here comes the top student of the school Tyrant." Or when I turned away, I'd hear, "They really look like a couple." It wasn't that I didn't hear. I just didn't care much. But Damian was different. He seemed to enjoy it, even confirming it out loud yesterday. "Yeah, we're dating," he told them. I nearly died chasing him. Now I finally get to hold his hand for real. The class erupted again. I choked on my drink. When I glared at him, he just grinned, tapping his fingers lightly over mine. "What? You wanted me to stay quiet and let them gossip? I can't hold it in." I believed him. If Damian could keep quiet, he wouldn't be Damian. That afternoon, light rain fell. I had an umbrella. Damian didn't. When school ended, he scratched his head. "Guess I'll wait till it stops." I glanced at him, then raised my umbrella. "Let's go." He blinked, then smiled stupidly. I didn't know why, but seeing that smile made me want to laugh too. "You're always so cold but so thoughtful," he said as we walked. I stayed silent. "Do you know something?" His voice dropped. "I never thought I could like someone this long." I turned, startled. "What did you think when we first met?" He laughed honestly. I thought, this stone-faced top student is never going to talk to me. I said nothing. "And you?" he asked. "What did you think when you first saw me?" I looked at him, answering honestly. "I thought you were noisy and troublesome. But somehow I remember that clearly." Damian froze for a second, then his smile burst wide open. "So from the start, I was already different to you, right?" I didn't reply. I only walked a little faster, like a breeze had passed through my chest. That weekend, our school held a student festival. I hadn't planned on going to the festival, but Damian Hart did everything from spamming me with text to bribing me with food until I gave in. "When you get too serious, it's cute. But I want you to try something fun," he'd said. I didn't regret going. Because in the game booths, I saw Damian laugh like a little kid. At darts, he missed 3 out of 5 throws. But every time he turned and asked, "Did I look cool?" When he won a grey teddy bear, he immediately shoved it into my hands. "Put this on your desk. Let it watch you study for me." When I accidentally beat him at a competitive game, he dramatically collapsed. "You really are my nemesis." I shook my head. "Not your nemesis." "Then what are you?" I looked straight into his eyes. For the first time I answered, "The one I keep in my heart." Damian froze. For a moment, his eyes shone like fireworks against the night sky. "Nathan Blake," he whispered. "Do you know? I've been waiting a whole month to hear that." I didn't reply. I only squeezed his hand tighter, not to comfort, but to confirm. On the way home, he pedaled while I sat on the back seat. The wind messed up my hair, and with one hand on the handlebars, he reached back to smooth it down for me. "You really are the perfect top student," he chuckled. "But why do you let me control your feelings so easily?" I leaned my forehead lightly against his back, voice low enough only he could hear. "Because you're the exception." That night, I lay in bed with the grey teddy bear he had won, placing it by my desk exactly as he'd said. I stared at it, then opened my phone and typed a message. "Thank you for your patience. Thank you for coming into my life." A minute later, his reply came. "Thank you for finally letting me in. I'm never leaving." My fingers trembled not from cold, but from warmth. He was so warm it scared me to imagine days without him. I had a secret. Not that I'd ranked first in our grade 2 years in a row. Not that I secretly liked the scent of mint on my deskmate's handkerchief. My secret was that I had grown used to opening my desk every morning to find a carton of milk with a messy note. "Drink this, study harder, love me a little more." I never replied to those notes, but I always drank the milk. And I always tucked the notes away in a box inside my drawer. Lately I'd discovered a troubling symptom. Attachment. Not physical, but emotional. I had grown used to his laugh every morning. Used to the puppy dog eyes whenever I left early. Used to the teasing that forced me to keep a straight face while my inside softened. I thought I was falling deep. This morning I arrived a little late. When I sat down, my desk was empty. No milk carton. No note. Nothing. Glancing around. Damian hadn't come. I checked my phone, no message. My eyes stayed glued to the screen until the bell rang, but he still didn't appear. For the first time since we had become each other's, He hadn't warned me about being absent. Inside me, a feeling rose, not worry, but absence. And that absence made it impossible to focus. By mid-class, the class monitor handed me a small bag. From Damian. He said if he couldn't come, to give this to you. I opened it. Inside was a homemade lunchbox and a folded note. Got home late yesterday, woke up with a slight fever. Mum's making me stay in, but don't you dare eat cup noodles. I know you'll be too lazy to cook. Eat the food I made. Even if it's bad, no complaining. P.S. I miss you like crazy. I read it again and again before lowering my head with a quiet smile. That afternoon, I went straight to the pharmacy, bought cold medicine, then headed to his neighborhood. The door to his house was ajar. I knocked 3 times. Damian opened it, wearing home clothes, hair messy, face flushed with fever. When he saw me, he blinked, then grinned like a kid given candy. I knew it, you'd come. I said nothing, just held out the medicine. Take it, then sleep. Don't scold me, I wasn't going to. He laughed as I shoved it into his hand. He swallowed the pills obediently, then flopped onto the sofa, wrapped in a blanket, only his eyes peeking out as he stared at me. Will you sit here and watch me sleep? I pulled a chair over, folding my arms. Sleep. You're too cold. You like me cold. Cold's fine. Just don't be cold to me. I looked at him for a long moment. Finally, I reached out, placing my hand on his forehead. Not cold, just not used to sweet words. Damian closed his eyes, smiling faintly. But your hand's really warm. And then he slept for real. I sat beside him, not scrolling my phone, not reading. Just quietly watching the face I knew so well I could draw it from memory. To everyone else, he was still the untouchable school tyrant. But to me, Damian Hart was just someone who needed care, foolish, reckless, yet warm enough to melt all the frozen days I once lived through. I whispered softly, Damian Hart. He didn't wake. Only furrowed his brows. I bent down and pressed the lightest kiss to his forehead. Just once. But I knew then I could never step back again. The next afternoon, he was better. The moment he entered class, he smirked. Someone kissed me yesterday, you know? I shot him a glare. You were asleep. I had a fever, but I still felt the love. He propped his chin in his hand, eyes curving. Being taken care of by the person I like. Even a fever becomes cute. I flipped open my book. Say one more word and I'll hit you. Then hit me. As long as you don't leave me. I sighed. I was trapped, wasn't I? I, Nathan Blake, the cold student even teachers hesitated to approach, was now bound to a boy named Damian Hart. Bound so tightly, I had no desire to untangle myself. And maybe I never could. Someone once asked me, if you could relive high school, what would you want most? I wouldn't have to think long. I'd want to sit again in the back of class 11/7. Still the cold top student. Still beside the loud, reckless tyrant named Damian Hart. Every day mocking me with some foolish line. Every day softening my heart bit by bit. Because in the endless silence of my life, he was the most beautiful sound. We entered senior year with only small but undeniable changes. No one in class talked about us anymore. Everyone was used to it. Used to me pulling out a chair for him every morning. Used to Damian napping on my sleeve during lunch break. Used to the fact that I never smiled at anyone else. I once thought attachments in school were fleeting. But now I understood some people appear in your youth not to pass through, but to stay. April came, exams looming. I studied harder. Spoke less. My notes filling page after page. Damian was still himself, lazy, yawning, but never leaving my side. I thought he didn't care about grades. Until one day, passing an empty classroom, I froze. Damian sat alone, bent over a pile of practice papers. No teacher watching, no one forcing him, just him. A pen in hand, working in silence. I stood quietly, afraid to break the scene. Afraid that if I spoke, it would vanish. That evening, I got a message. I know I might not make it into a top university like you, but I want to be in the same city. To see you studying every morning. To hold your hand every night. I stared at those words, my heart twisting. I had never asked him to change. All I wanted was for him to be happy. But it turned out he had changed because of me. Exam day came. We made no promises, no hand-holding. Just one long look before entering our rooms. In his eyes, I'm here because of you. In mine, so am I. After the exams, Damian pulled me up to the school rooftop. This is where I used to skip class to sleep, he said. I want to go back to where it started. Started what? Started liking you so much it hurt. I sat beside him. The day was calm, the sun gentle. Do you know? He said slowly. The day you sat next to me, I knew I was done for. Why? Because no one had ever dared tell me they weren't interested. You were the first. I chuckled softly. He reached into his bag, pulling out a thin blue cord. I don't have a ring. Or anything romantic. What are you doing? He lifted the cord and tied it loosely around my wrist. This is proof. Proof of what? He hesitated, then looked at me squarely. Proof that from today onward, I'm yours. And you're mine. I looked at the simple cord. I couldn't bring myself to untie it. So I nodded. Okay. He blinked in surprise, then slowly reached out, threading his fingers through mine. This time, no permission was needed, because we had already come so far together. There was no more doubt when the results came out. I was admitted to University A in City X Damian too. I knew how much he had worked for it. When he got the notice, he called me. The background was noisy. I did it, you can't change your mind now. I laughed, I never did. On the day of enrollment, we arrived together. Different dorms, different majors. But every morning I received the same message. Come to the courtyard. I'm waiting. And every night, I heard his familiar voice. Study hard tomorrow, or I'll teach you again with a kiss. I stayed cold on the outside. But inside I was already too soft to ever be cold again. If someday someone asks me, what was your youth? I'll answer, it was a school tyrant sitting in the back row, always tilting his head to smile when I read seriously. It was the warmth of laughter brushing my ear when I sighed. It was a carton of mint milk, a blue cord tied to my wrist, and a boy who never once missed a single day by my side. My youth had a name. It was Damian Hart.